Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well today. Well, let's take a look at aid, debt, and economic development. This is the introductory video to this section of the course syllabus, and it's something that I think if you've traveled a lot, you kind of see this in action. If you've had an opportunity to live in a developing nation, you see these signs on the side of the road that say like funded by the Japanese government or funded by the Spanish government, the German government, or this is a project of a joint project between the United States Agency for International Development and the host country. But there's actually a lot of different kinds of aid, and these kinds of aid can create debt for the developing nations or not, depending on the type of aid. And all of it's designed for economic development. But of course, if it's the type of aid that the developing country has a difficult time paying back, then the very aid itself could lead to a situation where economic development is more difficult. In this introductory video, we're just going to give you an overview of like why is there foreign aid. Aid or foreign aid is defined as any assistance that's given to a country that would not have been provided through market forces, right? And aid may be provided to developing countries for a number of reasons, and I just spelled them out here for you. There might a developed nation might provide aid to a developing nation for help after a natural disaster. You see this all the time. That's like, there's a massive earthquake or something somewhere, and the United States shows up with thousands and tons of food. That's a type of aid. Aid might be as a result to help developing countries achieve economic development. Aid might be sent to create or strengthen political strategies or political or strategic alliances with different countries. Certainly, if you just think of yourself as a human being, if you ever went through a bad time and someone came along and helped you, you remember that. So if you're a country and you're developing and you're going through a certain time and a country comes and helps you, that might create political bonds and strategic alliances. Aid might come to help fill the savings gap that exists in developing countries and so encourage investment. It might be sent to improve the quality of the human resources in developing countries. It might be sent to improve the levels of technology or maybe to fund specific development projects. And you might think that it's sort of straightforward, but because there are so many, I like to think of aid as like there's so much money in the countries that are developed that there is this, you want to believe that there's this interest in sharing the wealth with other nations. And that is true to a certain extent, and certainly non-government organizations do that. But I want you to think about aid that comes from particular countries. There's always some sort of political side of that aid, and maybe that's a little pessimistic to say. But there's something that is not necessarily altruistic about government aid. All right, and we're going to get into the fact that there are many different ways of categorizing aid. There is official development assistance, which has an acronym of ODA, which is aid that is organized by a government or an official agency to a donor country. And then unofficial aid, which is organized by non-government organizations or NGOs. And both those types of aids are helpful, but they create very different dynamic between the host country, the developing country that's receiving the aid, and the donor nation. Okay, so here we go. We're launching into aid, debt, and economic development, a very cool and intriguing part of the development economics syllabus. This combines a lot of the realities of humanity and government and economics all together. All right, I hope you thought this video was helpful. We'll talk to you in a bit.